So, Joe, I just got off the phone with the new head of the Transit Authority, and he says that his timeline for substantial change is 1 year. How do you feel about that? Is that doable?
I hope it's doable. We started the Subway Action Program 4 months ago, so another year and a half from, another year from now, we'll make it a year and a half. There will be substantial improvement by that point. We've seen a 20% reduction in major disruptions that are causing the delays, and that's just in the first couple of months. It'll be better every month, little by little by little, and we've got to get there.
So I know it's an ambitious timeline, but you already have seen substantial change just in the few months since you did the emergency plan. But the question for long term is, how are you going to pay for it?
Well, the most important part of it is getting the system stabilized, and once we do, we need to modernize it. There have been discussions about, additional funding through congestion pricing. There's some political back and forth as to what to do, but, I've yet to meet anybody who is saying that the MTA doesn't need additional sources of revenue. So that's a positive thing. What we need to do is harness that focus and try to get additional revenues. But my job is to make the MTA as efficient, as effective as possible. Look, if I was a legislator, I wouldn't want to give money to the MTA if they didn't make changes. So we're in the process of making the changes and bringing on Andy Byford to be the president of the Transit Authority was clearly I think a pivotal point in changing the system for the better.
He says he's going to be a change agent, and this is one of the toughest jobs in transit today.
Without a doubt, the toughest job in transit. And Andy has worked as a line manager in the London Underground. He was a general manager, chief operating officer in Sydney, Australia, then brought up to be the CEO in Toronto, which, by the way, is between the United States and Canada, it's the second largest transit system in the country. And if you look at what he's done in 5 years that he's been there, he has completely turned it around to a point where last year it was rated the #1 transit system in North America. Yeah, he is a change agent. That's who he is. That's the way he's been his entire life.
So do you think it matters that his experience in other systems has been in systems that are much smaller than New York City's?
Wherever you're going to get experience, it's going to be smaller than New York City. But what he's been able to do is take complex systems, and he understands it's not just how do you get the trains to run on time, how do you keep them clean, how do you serve all your customers. He's got good political skills. When you see about how he's been able to work in Australia, how he's been able to work in Toronto, those skills are obviously going to be needed.
So his catchphrase, if you will, was fix before failure. Is that something that you think is doable in New York City, which is a 24-hour system, 7 days a week?
Well, one of the things that we've been doing is you'll notice that, in the weeknights as well as on the weekends, a significant portion of the system is shut down. We advertise it, we market it, we tell all of our customers. And the reason for that is to get the work done. But we will get back to a 24/7, 365 system. But that's at the core of the problem, being able to maintain the system. New Yorkers are getting used to fast track, where we shut down at night about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night till 5 o'clock in the morning, and we're showing passengers different ways to get home, and bus services are being routed and rerouted accordingly.
But see, the question I think for him is how do you maintain the system? How do you keep the buses? How do you take the buses out of service to maintain them? How do you take subway cars out of service so that you can maintain them? And I wonder what your views are about that.
Right. So, one of the things, we've got new subway cars on order. They're actually late. They're coming in from Bombardier. They're just starting to show up. That's going to give us the opportunity to take more cars off. We do have a very extensive program of taking cars off and going through the rehab work as well as the maintenance work that we need to do. At any point in time, about 10–12% of our cars are in the shop. We're going to be able to enhance that once we get the new cars. And those new cars are being tested as we speak.
So will the new cars also fit with the new signal system that you hope to purchase?
The new cars have already fitted for a communication-based signal system. They already, and that's very important. And you bring up a really important point. If we put, communication-based controls all throughout the subway system, we need to have cars that can communicate with that system. So we're also in the process of upgrading a lot of the cars. We've done it on the L train. The #7 train from Flushing down to the west side of Manhattan. That is the next one that'll open up sometime in early 2018. And then we're going to Queens Boulevard. We're doing one at a time, and every time we're getting faster and faster and putting them in.
Have you gotten any results from the Genius Challenges?
We received about 474 different proposals from like 23 different nations. We've culled them down to about 70, and we went back to them, to all the folks of the 70, and we asked them for more information and you know, not just written proposals, but oral presentations. So we're going through that vetting process. There are a few things that are well worth looking at, and some of them are out-of-the-box thinking, which is exactly what we need.
So are we talking about something that would make installation of a new signal system faster, or are we talking about new cars?
Both new cars, both signals, you know, communication devices, different ways to have our stations structured and laid out. Remember, it was done on signals and cars and communication, and those are the three areas in which.
Would it speed up the change?
Some of it will speed up the change. There are a couple of signal systems that we started working on before the Genius Challenge, and some of them with the Genius Challenge, to try to figure out how can we put together a wireless system. It doesn't exist today in any transit system. We believe it can be done.
That's the goal?
Well, the goal is to not necessarily wireless, but to get the entire system. And the reason why you need a signal system, and the folks watching the show need to know this, is I need to get more cars in the station. I need to get more trains. You know, the headway in between cars, you know, I don't want it to be 6 and 7 minutes. I want it to be 3 and 4 minutes. Well, to do that, I need cars, and I need a new signal system.
But you can't make the subway stations any wider, any longer.
No, you can't. You can't make them longer, nor can you make them wider. And that's an issue. But the more trains you put in, the less crowding you're going to have. So
I guess the question is, again, what's your personal timeline in terms of when riders should begin to see substantial change? And also, you know, what is your reaction to the fact that they're actually seeing some substantial changes now?
The changes that they're seeing now, I wouldn't put in the category of substantial, incremental along the way. You know, we've seen a 20% reduction in the number of fires, 24%, which have a major impact on delays in the system, combined with delays related to signals and all the rest of it. They are starting to come down. But, you know, all you need is one. And let me give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, we had an unfortunate situation about 7:35 in the morning. There was somebody unauthorized on the tracks at 42nd Street. And with that, the trains along 6th Avenue, the B, the F, those trains were delayed because we had to deal with that situation. So by like 9:15, a little bit more than an hour after that, the headlines on blogs as well as some of the newspapers were very quick in putting out subway meltdown, this morning's subway meltdown. Well, when that happened, that was the only location that was delayed, but that entire line was delayed. Every other single line in the city was on time, performing on time. The part that were represented was just 6 to 7% of all the riders at any, you know, on any given day. But the headline, major meltdown, and people read that and they think, that's not, you know, the subway system. The rest of it was working fine. I'm working with reporters now, working with the press to you know, get a frame of reference. You know, we have 664 miles, you know, 728 thereabout stations. It's a large system. It is the largest, you know, number of stations in the world for a subway system, and it's a complex system, and it's not, you know, so words like meltdown are things that we're trying to change. So
quantify for me and for riders the change that has happened since you took over.
Quantify. So first off, by the end of the year, we'll have new rail throughout our entire system. We'll have every single station will have countdown clocks. Every single night, we have about 1,200 men and women, transit workers, in the stations, both cleaning as well as doing signal maintenance and track maintenance and all of that. And we're starting to see the results of that. Fires are down almost 40% at this point, and those are a significant portion of the problems with that. We're starting to see reductions of about 23 less. We're seeing 23% lower signal problems. And all of that is translating into delays. Delays are not as much as they used to be. And every month they've gone down, and they will continue to go down.
So that's good news for shop hangers.
It's great news for strap hangers, but they've got to recognize, you know, you and I we've been taking the subway for quite a long period of time, and we have a different frame of reference. We remember what the subways were like in the 70s and the 80s. They're not like that any longer. You know, there was like 3 to 4 derailments a week in the 1970s. We don't want any derailments. We don't want, there were actually trains crashing into each other. That's not going to happen on my watch, ever. But what's going to happen is we need to modernize the system, and we got to get everybody aware. You know, part of it is also education. One of the things we have to educate, for the people who didn't know what it used to be like, they just know what they want. And most of them were born in the 80s, and that's fine, but they have to understand. I'll give you a real story. This is an honest-to-God real story. Not that long ago, my train stop in Brooklyn Heights, Clark Street Station, some guy was running down the steps, and he's, you know, I can see him running down, and he obviously wants to get on the train, and he sees the countdown clock right there, and it says the next train in 3 minutes, and he blurts out an expletive, wanting to know why he has to wait 3 minutes for the train. You know, I understand the desire. You know, in his case, he was going into Manhattan. I understand that desire to have the train there, but to have a train coming in 3 minutes, I'd like that to be for everybody who takes the system, to have a train within 3 to 4 minutes.
So what's your personal timeline for when riders will see substantial change?
I think you know, this coming summer, by the summer from now, the spring and the summer, they'll start to see substantial change, and we'll start talking about it.
2018, 2019?
Oh, 2018. 2018.
That's not even a year from now.
Right. But look, we're working hard day and night to make the difference. And, you know, quite honestly, if people expect there would be no delays ever, that's not possible. There's not a transit system in the country that doesn't have delays. But what we need to do is to communicate with folks how many trains are coming. We've put up a new dashboard so people can see what the wait time is by line, by time of day, peak or non-peak. You know, some of the problems we have, and it's kind of interesting, there's an analysis being done right now. Many stops get extremely crowded in the morning. And you look at it, you know, people are coming at a perfect example is 96th Street on the Upper West Side, the 1, 2, and 3. It seems like everybody comes out between 8:10 and 8:30. You know, when you look at how it's crunched and the number of people, now that's a long platform, but it's a narrow platform, so it makes people feel cramped. But in the process, just realizing, you know, I got to get enough data to be able to show people the peaks of when the majority of people are coming in so they can adjust accordingly. Look, we're creatures of habit. We're not, you know, some people are not going to change what time they leave in the morning to get to work, leave earlier, leave later, whatever it is. But this past summer, when we had a change to the schedule on the Long Island Railroad, the Long Islanders did change their habits, and it became it was a successful summer.
So the summer of 2018, really?
Summer of 2018, people will, I believe, see change. Now, I don't think that's aggressive. I've got some people who are demanding it today. I'm doing my best to get it by then, but they'll see change. They'll see a significant reduction in the number of delays.
Thank you.
Will they be happy? It's a different issue.
It's New York.
We're in New York. We're in New York. Right.
Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks, Marcia.